Hello guys, Nanashi here. Zik says, yes, Six assumes the bloodline wasn't strong enough because the guy works at an inn instead of becoming a warrior. Zik agrees with him. The protagonist asks how pure his lineage is. The boy shamefully reveals that he is from class F, a defective. Suddenly, an explosion hits the inn, and someone jumps far away to protect himself. The protagonist looks at the ceiling, which ended up being ripped off, and realizes they were attacked by a dragon. Residents begin to flee, screaming that a dragon has appeared in the village. Zik asks the guests to evacuate. Regarding that, the protagonist again questions whether Alex hadn't said dragons were neutral. Alex defends himself, saying he heard that 80 years ago. Six says it's fine because this moment is perfect. He looks at Zik and declares he will be his sponsor. The protagonist explains that he's been searching for a warrior, and it seems fate brought them together. He says that if Zik accepts his offer, Zik will gain wealth and never again be called a defect. Furthermore, he will no longer be class F. These words lead Zik to recall his past. He remembers being a child, with his brother always questioning why they were despised despite having a pure bloodline. Zik also recalls the hunger his family endured during his youth. As he grew up, he thought he would never have a chance. But now, after hearing the protagonist's offer, his mindset changes. He kneels and thanks him for the opportunity, promising to do his best not to fail his sponsor. Six, pleased by how easy it was, says they are now partners. Then he sends Zik off to face that dragon. Zik is afraid, wondering if it might be safer to start with goblins or something else. Six replies that before they begin, there's one thing they must do. Using magic, the protagonist writes a contract. It basically states that Zik must fully obey all of Six's orders. Only the protagonist can terminate the agreement, and Zik cannot raise any objections. All riches will be distributed as the contract owner sees fit. Six warns they will be bound together from the moment Zik signs. The poor boy realizes he won't have much freedom, but the mention of riches entices him, so he signs anyway. The protagonist smiles and announces it's time to get that dragon. Alex remembers that not just anyone can eliminate a dragon. Six tells him he'll just watch while they do the work. His plan is for Alex to kill the dragon, leave it in front of Zik, the defective, and then have Zik place his sword on the dragon's body, so everyone believes he was the one who defeated it. The poor boy likes the plan until he realizes he's being referred to as a defect. Alex reminds the protagonist that Zik is class F. People will be suspicious if he single-handedly kills a dragon. Six looks at the poor defect with shining eyes, wondering how to solve that problem. At that moment, Zik's clothing is torn off, and the protagonist takes a pot, uses fire to burn eye holes, and places it on Zik's head. Six calls him my masked warrior, and says this way, nobody will recognize him. Alex says he will deal with the dragon in the meantime. Zik is surprised that they are actually going through with this crazy plan. The protagonist notices something is missing and grabs a broom lying on the floor, tossing it to Zik. Six tells him to wait there and be ready once the dragon is defeated. These words are enough for Zik, who suddenly feels a strange force running through his hands and insists he can handle anything. He manages to awaken some warrior spirit from deep within his veins. The instinct of the pure bloodline arises, an instinct that, if he knew the truth, would naturally drive him to destroy the Demon King. However, Zik has no idea that Six is the Demon King, since the protagonist presented himself as God. He also doesn't realize that sensation is the awakening of his pure lineage. He simply assumes it's a power given by the protagonist and thanks him. Six pats his back, labeling him the pet. Meanwhile, villagers try to escape the dragon's onslaught. Alex emerges from a magic rift and sees the dire situation. The dragon also notices him. The servant decides there's no time to waste and uses his magic to launch multiple attacks at once. The monster charges, appearing unfazed by the blows, but in reality, Alex's spell is directed at its heart. At that point, he warns the dragon that he's holding its heart in his hands, so it must not resist. Alex seizes the opportunity to ask why the beast is here. Weren't dragons and humans at peace a few years back? Suddenly, strange purple shapes appear within the dragon, catching the servant's attention. He realizes something is amiss when the monster manages to utter a few words, with Alex among the curses it speaks. From a distance, Zik watches the commotion. Some villagers peer from a window and notice the boy, wondering who he is. One suggests he might be a warrior, but another disputes it, saying there's no way a real warrior would dress like that. Zik grows embarrassed, and the protagonist advises him to ignore them. Glancing at the villagers, Zik thanks them and tells himself it's time to take down that dragon. Meanwhile, the monster keeps causing trouble for Alex. The servant finds it hard to control the creature, so he tries a different approach. He attacks with demonic hands and attempts once more to imprison the dragon. This succeeds, and he uses a heart-piercing move. The dragon howls in pain, but simultaneously, Those strange purple shapes keep the heart from being destroyed. Suddenly, the beast utters that the one who should be replaced has risen, and its tentacles dart toward Alex's face. The servant ponders these words and grasps what's happening. Meanwhile, the protagonist observes the fight, wondering why Alex is taking so long to finish off the monster. He wonders if the servant is relying on fistfights instead of black magic, but then he notices the dragon beginning to fall. Six tells Zik to get ready. He must strike the dragon with the broom the moment it's about to hit the ground. Zik obeys, focusing on the creature. Then the dragon opens its mouth to let out a mighty roar. Zik, who is feeling uneasy, fears it might be mocking him, and he's worried about being obliterated. Six bursts out laughing and tries to calm him, declaring that as long as he's there, nothing bad will happen. Encouraged by this, Zik grips the broom, assuring himself he can do it. At the same time, Alex is being consumed by the purple goo and tentacles. The servant uses his demonic hands to pull that stuff off his face, but the purple mass counters with more tentacles. Alex realizes his hands are pinned. This is getting problematic. Nevertheless, he perseveres, fighting back against the monster's assault. He grabs hold of the octopus-like appendage and plunges downward at full force. The protagonist sees the dragon descending rapidly, commenting that maybe Alex should slow down if they want to save the corpse. Alex continues battling the purple goo. Meanwhile, villagers shout that the dragon is approaching. Zik prepares to strike, but the protagonist notices something off. The dragon is flying normally instead of plummeting. He glances over and realizes Alex is being attacked by some purple substance, which may be preventing the beast from falling. Zik tries to motivate himself, recalling how his father taught him swordsmanship when he was a kid. His father said that a secret technique was passed down in their family. Even though other children doubted he could ever join the kingdom's army, his father insisted it didn't matter what they said. The pure bloodline still flowed in their veins. Zik trusted his father's words, and when he confronted the dragon, he was certain he could use what he learned. Now he readies the broom, prepared to land a blow. Finally, Alex breaks free from the goo. Zik strikes the monster right on target. A blue paint effect seems to burst on impact, and the dragon is sent flying. Zik opens his eyes to see if he hit the mark and notices everything is splattered with blue paint. Suddenly, the villagers start believing he's a hero. The protagonist laughs at the scene. Zik notices his laughter. Six suggests that the masked hero change clothes quickly. The boy complies and runs off. Alex watches from above with his disfigured face, clearly remembering that strange voice telling him that the corpse had been reborn. Morning arrives, and the protagonist wakes up. Alex drinks a cup of coffee, remarking that he noticed humans start their day with that beverage. Suddenly, Zik barges in with good news. Everyone in the village is talking about the masked hero. The protagonist wants more details but can't help noticing how filthy the boy's clothes are. Zik explains that he was helping repair parts of the village, which is why he's so dirty. Six says he understands, and Zik comments that it's nice waking up to that kind of sunshine. Apparently, he just returned to the same dragon-damaged room and slept peacefully, without a proper home. Meanwhile, the residents are trying to salvage what they can after the destruction. Many homes were demolished in the attack, leaving people homeless. They admire Zik for his feats, praising his performance. Alex remarks that the boy seems to be doing well. They spoke with him yesterday, and Zik shared that he grew up poor, having to work from a young age to support his family. He even worked in a grim bar at one point. The protagonist is glad to have a new team member, and already decided what they'll do: stay in this village for a while and pause their journey. Six thinks it's a perfect place to continue posing as a human. He gets up and heads out with a smile, saying they should let Zik keep working. Alex asks where he's going, and the protagonist replies that he's going to sell the dragon's hide. The servant mentions that the heroes took whatever remained of the dragon last night. They wonder how that happened, and if their efforts were in vain, as they can't profit from the creature's corpse. The Demon King starts yelling at Alex to come with him. Alex asks how and where they plan to go. The protagonist says they're heading to the hero agency. Alex knows that's the main base for high-level heroes, so he worries the protagonist won't survive if they find out the Demon King is in the human world. He tries to talk Six out of it, saying that going there will ruin his plan to integrate into society. Moreover, they need the agency to remain functional so they can register Zik as a warrior. The protagonist pauses to consider it. About that, Alex is confident he has managed to stop the destruction of the demonic race. Six changes his approach and says he knows how to reclaim his items, telling the servant to follow him, which forces Alex to drive the carriage once more. He gets annoyed when the main character does not respond, using the very name he created to live in the human world. Six also appears tired of traveling. Alex takes the opportunity to urge him back to the demonic world, arguing that he has been on the surface long enough. Six replies that Alex cannot just say that, because he wants to. The servant does not understand the boy's reluctance to claim his own title. After all, the 665 demon kings before him, and every demonic kingdom, accept this as soon as it is born. The protagonist responds that Alex must accept there is no more demon king. The servant tries to convince him at least to produce a son who could take his place, but Six refuses. Alex makes it clear he will not leave until he brings an heir back to the underworld. Six replies that is fine, as it means Alex will remain here on Earth by his side. The servant says he can find the perfect girl for that, a tribute to both of the 6 kings. He begins to ponder the plan, remembering the princess, but wonders if it would actually work. Alex asks if anything is wrong, and the protagonist hesitantly questions whether a human can be impregnated by a demon. Alex says yes, and Six gives a mischievous grin. The servant explains that the method for having a baby is exactly the same. He begins describing how the main character could conceive a child, but Six cuts him off, saying he understands. Alex goes on to note that if the boy wishes, he can have a child with a human. Apparently, there is a 25% chance of pregnancy with just a kiss. Alarmed, the protagonist asks if kissing alone can produce a child. The servant replies that Six is so fertile, he could impregnate someone simply by standing near them. Lying down in the wagon, the protagonist says he finally understands his body is designed this way because he is fated to leave an heir for the next reincarnation. Alex explains that this is the body of every demon king in the demonic realm. Six confesses he does not like the feeling of people expecting something from him. At that moment, their conversation is cut short by a sudden noise. They both look toward the sound and see a girl being chased. Alex urges the protagonist to help free her from those mountain bandits, but Six is too comfortable in his wagon to intervene. Moreover, the situation looks suspicious. The protagonist remarks that a beautiful girl pleading for help is one of the most common tropes in fantasy. Alex is unsure, and Six clarifies that the bandits keep pursuing her, even across open fields and right in front of them. He is convinced Alex orchestrated this scene so the girl might bear his heir. The servant asks if the protagonist truly believes the greatest strategist in the demonic realm would allow such a terrible plan to be enacted. At that moment, the girl reaches the wagon and implores Six, asking if he is already siding with those bandits. He replies he is merely a hero's companion. She ignores that and continues begging for help through tears. The protagonist says such thugs are too minor for him to bother with. The girl hurls some insults, prompting Six to suspect he has caught her in a lie, and he laughs in her face. Yet the next moment, the bandits throw an axe at the carriage. One of them begins tearing at the protagonist's rustic clothes. Six did not expect his carriage to be damaged. Something about that triggered fury within him, and he cursed them all. The bandits collapse to the ground, ensnared by black magic, howling that their bodies are aflame. The others try to help, but the protagonist states this fire cannot be extinguished. His magic cannot be undone by anyone. He then asks if anyone else wants to test his patience. They do not hesitate to abandon their fallen comrades and flee. The girl appears relieved, and Six tells her she may leave now. She pleads for help because her temple has been seized by mountain-dwelling bandits. Six refuses again, stating he does not do low-level missions, then tells Alex to move on. The girl interrupts, asking if the protagonist is the companion of that hero who dresses in a piece of cloth. She adds that her temple holds a genuine dragon helmet and promises to reward him with it if he helps. The protagonist likes this idea and urges Alex to hurry. A few minutes later, Six is being carried comfortably by his servant. Alex can barely stand the endless stairs, but the protagonist encourages him to push on. The servant senses something odd about the girl. While he is exhausted, she has been running for 30 minutes without slowing. Alex expected the steepness of the mountain to be a real challenge for any human body. Six tells him not to worry because he will rip her head off if she is lying in any way. What the protagonist cannot understand is why something is referred to as the Golden Dragon. Alex explains that dragons once worshipped God, just as the underworld reveres the Demon King. Indeed, the Golden Dragon is the highest authority among dragons. Every living creature in this world chooses someone they call Creator. Six thinks that is different from humans' God. Demons view dragons merely as a secondary force. Alex claims demonic beings would be favored if the protagonist embraced his own title. Even so, it seems Six is uninterested. A few minutes later, they finally reach the mountaintop. Alex collapses onto the ground, and the protagonist steps on his back as if it were a walkway. Six warns he will use Alex again for the descent. The two enter the temple, hidden within a cave. Immediately, the protagonist asks where the priestesses are, saying he came here to collect the authentic golden dragon helmet. Alex tries to keep him quiet, when suddenly a roar echoes from behind them. The boys turn around, startled. The girl who was previously being pursued is now soaring in midair, projecting a terrifying aura. They misread the protagonist's intentions, and she remarks that his minion seems more capable than he is. Six continues demanding the location of the helmet. The woman orders them to kneel and declares that the body before them is now occupied by the ruler of all dragons. Alex asks the protagonist what they should do now that they have found the true golden dragon. The servant feels cornered, as though there is no escape. The woman laughs and says it is fine if they are afraid. She can pardon them for their insolence, but first she gives the protagonist an ultimatum. Six wonders if she truly believes he wants to apologize. He scratches his nose and replies that he just wants a cool title like hers. He has a brief exchange with Alex, and the woman becomes furious at not being taken seriously. She shouts for them to stop this foolishness because time is short, so they should apologize immediately. Six insists he has done nothing to her that warrants an apology, but the woman reminds him that just yesterday, he destroyed a dragon. The protagonist asks if all this fuss is simply because of that. Angered, she strides toward him and questions why he is so confident when standing in her domain. She proclaims that even if he is the Demon King 6, he is still within her territory and will be unable to defeat her. Alex tries to warn the protagonist that it is extremely dangerous to remain in the Golden Dragon's domain. The woman assumes the protagonist will cower like his servant, but Six moves in close and says he is ready to take her down. She is about to respond when he cuts her off. The protagonist asks if she would not prefer to apologize for deceiving them. The woman is taken aback by Six's hand pressed to her face. He says he only came to the surface intending to serve as a hero's companion, but that damn dragon set fire to the village, forcing him to destroy it in self-defense. She does not know how to respond. At that moment, the protagonist goes on, explaining that she failed to rein in her children's mischief, yet now she has appeared to punish him. On top of that, she tricked them, pretending she needed help to escape some bandits. Alex joins the conversation, agreeing with the Demon King. He says it is extremely presumptuous of her to assume her words are automatically correct just because she holds power. The servant also recalls that it was the dragon's side that broke the peace and attacked him first, so in this scenario, she is in the wrong and must apologize. The protagonist concurs with Alex, adding that parents are always responsible for their children's mistakes, so the woman ought to apologize to the village her dragon attacked. At this point, Six and Alex pressure her to admit her fault. Suddenly, a red liquid seeps from the girl's ear, and she realizes she is in the wrong. She admits her error and begs them to let her go now that she has confessed. She tilts his head, asking if the protagonist can at least hear her request before leaving. The Demon King does not grasp why she is still pressing the matter. She says she will voice her request only if she first receives an apology. The woman sees no other option and meekly begs forgiveness. The protagonist strokes her head in a somewhat dubious manner and says he accepts. Then he asks what request she is so eager to make. She stammers a bit, then says she needs her dragons to be hunted down. Six is astonished and wonders if this dragon mom truly wants the Demon King to defeat her own children. She answers yes, and the protagonist starts patting or lightly, slapping her a few times, asking if she actually thinks he would fall for such a foolish trap. Alex steps between them, asking if God is suspecting this because of the purple tentacled substance that was attached to the dragon's body. The woman admits she believes that monster is taking over her dragon's minds, causing them to attack the village. After all, dragons would never breach a peace accord with humanity. Even though her offspring have suffered greatly at human hands, they should never have attacked. Now she fears a renewed war between dragons and humans. Therefore, she begs the protagonist to accept her request and kill the dragons that are being manipulated by whoever this extremist is. Six understands precisely what she wants and says he will track down the troublemaker, called the Hardline, who controls these once peaceful dragons. But he asks if she is turning to the Demon King because she does not want humans to wipe out her children. She confirms that is so, and the protagonist demands to know what he gains from this. The goddess asks if he has anything in mind, and the Demon King asks for 5 dragon scales. He heard that since ancient times, weapons have been forged from dragons. She finds this request excessive, but the protagonist says that is her price and prepares a contract. He warns her to think carefully because she is about to make a deal with the devil. All she needs to do is state her name, and the contract will be sealed. The woman ponders briefly, then agrees. Six grins and declares the agreement sealed. Now he tells God to free him from this space, adding that he will begin the job tomorrow. That's all for this video, everyone. If you had a good time watching, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you'll catch the next part of this story. Thanks a bunch and see ya.